Well, good morning and thank you all for being here. I'm glad to be back. Sorry I wasn't here to listen to an interesting presentation last week, I heard. And didn't even get through all of it. Gonna do the rest of it at another future date, right, Bob? Maybe. All right, well, and we don't have the great wind today. We all got here in good stead. So again, thank you very much. Couple of announcements. One for the women's retreat. I'm not sure, is it?
It's sold out.
It's sold out, but you can
there's a
sign
waiting
up on a waiting list. That's what I thought I heard yesterday, Sunday in the announcements, but so if anybody would like to get on the waiting list, do so. Sometimes there's last minute cancellations, and if you're flexible enough, that would be a good opportunity. Men's retreat has openings yet. The registrations are open until the end of the month. So I think that's end of the month, end of April. Yeah, it's gotta be end of the month, because the retreat's in April.
March 30th.
March 30th, yeah. Men's retreat is April 12 to 14. And the last announcement is this Sunday. You don't want to miss it. The Verdi Requiem, 4 o'clock. So you better come early, as usual, if you want to get a seat. So again, that's at 4 o'clock on Sunday, the Verdi Requiem. Any other announcements that I've missed, Dave?
Next,
You try to keep me on track.
just next week, we have a little known but very famous speaker. We have the husband of Leah Caracas coming to tell us about 10 things you never knew about Oklahoma. I'll be more than happy to do it. It's a treat. You'll be able to meet him, see what he's doing, what's his life all about, and how do you be a good husband to a
Very good. Well, great. Thank you, Dave. And so with that, I'll open with prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day. Thank you for this gathering of fellowship on this nice Tuesday morning. Ask you to be with each of us this day and through our life. Be with all those in our church family and others that are in need of your healing touch and grace, comfort. Just be with them as we go through this time. Be with our church as we go through the holy season of Lent and prepare for Easter Sunday. Just bless this day. Amen. And without further ado, welcome one of our own to speak to us, Sherry Brady. And so Sherry, you just went through downsizing not so long ago.
Couple years ago.
So fresh in your mind to some of us who haven't downsized for many years or haven't even downsized ever. So we have a lot to learn from your wisdom.
I've got some stories.
All right. And with that, Sherry, thank you.
Thank you, Ted and Dave, for inviting me to do another program this year. I guess I didn't do too badly last year. We have a nice big group, and I see faces of people who I recognize, but I don't know that I've seen you here before. So just on behalf of the group, please come back. Even if the speaker doesn't sound interesting, they almost always are. And the coffee fellowship is worth your time. We've made some really good friends in this group. But I also want to thank Wayne. I specifically asked him last week if he would come back and play As Time Goes By, because I thought that was the perfect song. It brought back a lot of memories. And then he also played, a nice Irish tune for us. So thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Anne, for getting him here. So our story, I'm trying not to be too personal, but it's a very personal thing that most of us, if you haven't gone through it, you will go through it. We've closed out homes for 3 different family members. My parents, both times, it was my dad, my mom was gone, Ray's parents, and Ray's sister, 2 times for each of those sets of people. And one of those, his father had a home in Mexico, didn't own it, but had property, had things there that we had to go and retrieve and get back to the States. So that was a challenge. And through those times, we've done everything. My dad had 2 different 2-day auctions in Kansas. where auctions are still kind of a big thing. We've done garage sales, we've done flea markets, we've donated, and we've kept things. But 2.5 years ago was when our downsizing seriously started. We have a son and a daughter-in-law, and she was pregnant. And one day I just looked at Ray and I said, we keep talking about moving. We just need to cut the cord. We need to do it. So now we have a 21-month-old and a 7-month-old who live 20 minutes away. So we're pretty lucky. It was hard to leave Pittsburgh, our home. Lots of friends, but it's amazing how quickly you can make new friends. So thank you to Westminster Church for that. I will cover a lot of different options of things to do and hopefully motivate you even just to start in some small way. So let me start with my slides. So ironically, there's been so much in the media the last few weeks, ever since I started planning this about 8 or 10 months ago, I think, but 2 weeks ago, this came in the mail. And it's really more about the real estate end of the downsizing and how hard it is, to make that move. But I just thought it was so ironic. And this was one of the articles that got me started, and it was by the author Ann Patchett. And if you're interested in the very long article, it's in the March 1st, 2021 issue of the New Yorker. And you probably can pull it up online. You usually can get 1 or 2 free articles. She just had some great stories about what motivated her to do it. Her friend's father had died and had never gotten rid of anything. And so there were treasures, but there were also 6 12-packs of Kraft macaroni and cheese. So she and her friend insisted that she select something to remember the father by, and she selected a couple of small things. But from that, she and her husband had a long talk with each other and said, we will not do this to anyone else. And they looked at other homes, they decided to stay where they were and pretend to move. And I love that quote, pretend to move. It's a good way to get started. In our situation, when we moved, we sold some things, and we were fortunate. We actually sold a china cabinet, which I hear horror stories about that not happening, for $300 to somebody on Craigslist. On the other hand, in this day and age, you're a little uncomfortable about somebody coming, and that's not something you can put in the back of your car and meet them at the police station. I gave a lot away on Dave's back there counting. I gave a lot away through neighborhood groups. I had things from my son's childhood. His stuffed Tigger went to the grandson of a neighbor. I was very happy that her grandson was going to have that. We did a little bit of marketplace, and we set up at a flea market one day. And Ray and I like that kind of thing. It's not for everybody. We have a flatbed trailer. So we had 2 spaces. I think, we made $300, but the bonus was a very good friend and neighbor was there, and she liked our patio furniture and she liked our grill. And we said, we're just dropping it off at your house on our way home. So we were able to bless some others. And our new owners were in their 30s, and they actually wanted some of our things. And we sold them some things, and we gifted them a very old piano, but they agreed to take it. So that made it, I'm glad to know that our China buffet that we loved and had been Ray's grandmothers, but we didn't know where we were moving. We didn't know what we would need. We might not have, we might not buy a house where we needed a buffet, and they liked it. And it was perfect in that house where it was. So I'm glad to know the buffet is still living in its home. We were there for 33 years, and our son was born and raised in that house, and only child. I never threw anything away, but we did throw a lot of school papers. I did throw some things away, but there were 2 good boxes of school papers, and you can take pictures of those things, and the pictures won't deteriorate. The paper does deteriorate quickly. We have a couple of other friends' stories. We have a friend in Kansas City, and sadly, her husband died during COVID. So it's been almost 4 years, and she's still dealing with downsizing her house. And she is moving a grand piano, not a baby grand, but a grand piano from Kansas City to Connecticut. And in my own mind, my advice would be sell the piano and buy another piano at the other end. And by the way, she doesn't play.
Oh.
Her daughter, she's moving near her daughter and her daughter plays, but her daughter's not going to be living with her. We also have friends who downsized and live on their boat. That's a totally different story, but they had combined two households, got married later in life to each other, and they do have some things in storage, and they own a car that they keep at her dad's house, but that's the ultimate downsizing. So I move on. So this was another article that popped up. This was either in the New York Times or the New Yorker. It looks like it was the New Yorker also. And it's a very thorough article, but it's very New York centric. So some of the options that they suggest don't apply to us, but they did just talk about, the same idea, give you some ideas of what to do with things. And this popped up literally in my feed last week, and this is from an email called The Ethel, and it's part of AARP. It's aimed at senior women. So if you don't get The Ethel, it's very interesting. There's always a good article, and I think they send an email like once a month, but another good article. My kids don't want all of my stuff. I like the emphasis. I'm not sure our kid wants any of our stuff.
Yeah.
So some of his childhood things, they're just staying at our house, and the girls can play with them at our house, and we don't add to the clutter at their house. Oh, so this was the day we moved. Ray had already left with a big moving truck and a trailer behind it, and I had just the pickup truck and the dog to clean the house and fill the truck. The vacuum cleaner is sitting there because my vacuum cleaner broke the day we moved out of our house, and our king size bed had not been moved in, let's just say, a couple of years. So I felt very bad, and I left a really nice note for the new owners and apologized that I could not vacuum the whole house. And we had a neighbor up the street who is very, very kind, and he and his wife came down and assured me that they would find new homes for everything that we couldn't get in the truck.
Wow.
So it's kind of interesting memory. So your options are start now, start later, or leave everything for your heirs. Yes, there's a question in the audience.
Yeah, I'm gonna add to the story. So my father, when my mom and dad owned a farm home in Mercer, up north of Pittsburgh, and they were living only in Mexico. I said to Dad, it's time to think about downsizing and doing something with the farm, because they could literally walk in with no suitcase, no nothing, just their medications, and start living again. He looked at me very calmly and said, nope, that's gonna be your problem.
Thank you for that. Great. We had parents who were collectors, so we came by it very, very honestly. I have a sweater that's more than 40 years old. And that's kind of sad. And I still wear it.
We all do.
Good. See, Ray, I'm not the only one. If you decide that you're just not going to deal with it, at least leave good instructions for your family. Leave them the combination to the safe or the key to the safe deposit box. Leave them your passwords. I think about when our parents died. My parents didn't have passwords.
Right.
My dad had a cell phone. It probably wasn't even locked. And our parents have been gone. My dad died in 2011. So yeah, he had an eBay account through me. There were no passwords, no emails to worry about. So just think about your kids or your family or whoever will inherit. So starting now, here we go. Okay. What's important, what's valuable, what's sentimental. If it doesn't fall in any of those categories, you probably could get rid of it. My husband suggested that when he's working on a car, sometimes if it's too overwhelming, and something he doesn't want to do, he'll give it a half hour a day. And a half hour, you could get a lot done. And I did look up the 3-box thing. I've never actually I've not been a student of the 3-box thing, but keep, toss, or donate. And that makes a lot of sense. That is an easy way, even if you just start with a drawer. Sorry, I'm shuffling papers, but I had to make notes. Oh, Ann Patchett, another quote from the great Ann Patchett. As long as you're living, you're not done. Because even if you do it, you're still going to accumulate things. People give you gifts. You go to a shop and you see something you can't live without. You make the mistake of walking into a flea market or an antique shop. So thank you, Ann Patchett, for her wealth of knowledge. Selling. Lower your expectations, sadly. So many of the things that we have are not valuable to anyone, which is very sad. I covered that, Ray, and I did a flea market. We've done yard sales. We still go to estate sales. If you're thinking about an estate sale, our friend in Kansas City had someone come out and she didn't have enough for an estate sale. And I think, I haven't been to her house in a long time. I think she didn't have the right things. I know she had enough. I know she had dining room furniture. She had old wood furniture that the estate sale knew they weren't going to make money on it. So bear that in mind if you call an estate sale company to come out. And I imagine in this day and age, they might even want you to just send some pictures before they come out. Craigslist is still a thing. Again, if you're going to sell something, probably not something big, but something smaller, you can always meet them at the post office, at the police station, somewhere, a public parking lot. Generally, unless it turns out to be someone you don't want them coming to your home. Facebook Marketplace is the same idea. Our daughter-in-law does quite a bit on Facebook Marketplace. Not selling so much as, buying used kids equipment. It is another resource. Consignment, I covered a few here, just a few that I know a little bit about that are in the area. Encore, I looked it up last night. They have a $10 one-time fee. Then it is consignment. They take, you get 55% of the proceeds up to $200 in sales. And if it's over a $200 sale, you get 70%. And I don't know, for the people, probably ladies who've been in there, they do have some very high-end household items, glassware, crystal, and they have clothing. It's an option. I've only been there a couple times. Melena's, which is in town, right in the borough. She buys things generally from the 1850s through the 1970s. I think I may have just seen that that's been updated to the 1980s because that's further away than it used to be. And actually, she has some lovely things. It's a really interesting shop to go in, even if you don't have things you want to sell. She has beautiful jewelry, and she has a very prominent eBay presence, and she sells things. She works with, I think it's Netflix. One of the streaming services actually comes to her when they need period pieces, which I found, it's really quite unique that we have that shop right in Westchester. And the Women's Exchange, which is also in Westchester, I think that's on Church Street. Okay. So some of you probably know it. And I think the proceeds from that go to a hospital. Okay. They have a small annual fee of $15. Somebody was in the shop the other day, so I got this information from her. She's a consignor there, and they pay 60%. You get 60% of what things sell for. And I don't think they do any furniture. And I think China, they probably are pretty selective because their space isn't that large. If you want to just outright sell your things, no commission or anything, just sell it. Dishfunctional is a great shop in Fraser, like Fraser, Melbourne. And if you've not been in there, don't go. You might buy something. Last time I was in there, he actually had some pieces that were our everyday dishes that we've had since we got married 42 years ago. And they were little shallow bowls that we never had. So I picked them up for, I think, $4 a piece, but I only bought 2. But he buys things outright. he has a very good reputation. I think he's very honest. And, you know, he'll buy or he won't buy. He might give you a really low price, but you at least know it's not going to a dump. It's going in his shop. Replacements is a national company in near Burlington, North Carolina. A lot of people hear about it and talk about it. If you've ever bought anything on Replacements, you know that their prices are high. If you want to sell through them, if you have enough stuff, get in your car and drive it down there. I only say that because our son went to college really near there, and I've been in there, and it's a really interesting place. It's a massive warehouse. But if you ship things to them and they decide they don't want it, you have to pay the shipping to get it back, or else they keep it. So in my mind, they don't have a huge incentive to offer you a big price because most people are not going to pay to have it shipped back. And if they do buy it, they pay around a fourth of what you will ultimately see it selling for on their website. So I'm not a fan. I think you can tell I'm not a fan. I bought a couple things there because sometimes they have things you just can't find anywhere else. An auction is always another option. When Ray and I were first married, we went to farm auctions all the time, which is where we got a lot of our stuff. And I love a good auction, but nowadays they're mostly held either online or in an auction house. And I don't have any updated information, but Bunch Auction, which Ray might be able to tell me what road that's on. But it's okay. Chad's Ford is what came up when I looked it up. And we've been there once or twice, but then someone told me that you can't even go and see the items anymore. It's all online. But they do still have auctions, and there's Pook and Pook, which is, I think sometimes they've been featured on Antiques Roadshow, and that's in Downingtown. eBay is kind of our favorite option because we both have done quite a bit of like Ray sells car parts. I sell nicky-nacky things that we've accumulated through the years. And eBay, they charge 13.25%, that really weird fraction. And they charge an extra 30 cents on every item you sell. So if you're selling something small, it's really not worth it. And they charge the fee on the tax and the shipping charge also. But it's very easy to ship through eBay. Nowadays you can print your label, or they can send you a QR code, which you take to the post office, show your phone to the postmistress, and they print the label. You don't have to worry about printing it, and it is really easy. I mean, I dropped something off in Westchester yesterday. And Poshmark is mainly clothing. It's men's and women's clothing, but they also in the last couple of years have started selling household goods. And I've sold a few small things. The thing I really like about Poshmark is their postage, their shipping is flat rate, and I think it's like $7. They have the best contract with the post office. You can use any flat rate packaging, which can be up to $20 if you're paying the post office rate. But Poshmark has this great contract with them. And so that makes it very easy. And it's the same as eBay. You can get a QR code, or you can print your label. And they take under $15. It's a flat fee of $3. So if you've got something for $8 or $10, again, it's not really worth it. But if it's over $15, they take 20%. And they get a lot of views. It is a big, it's kind of like the eBay of clothing. A couple of other places I added to my notes. I was talking to someone who is very dedicated to reducing, reusing, recycling. And she told me about a shop which I want to go to because I want to go shop. It's called Next to New. Some of you may know it. I've never been there. It's near Lancaster, and they consign. They also do estate cleanouts, estate sales. So that's another option. And Stewart's in, I don't know the name of that shopping center if somebody wants to tell me, but on
West Scotia.
Okay, West Scotian. Thank you, Carol. Stewart someone told me that they sold silver plate there, and they got a pretty good price for silver plate. And Stewart does buy silver and gold. excuse me, we sold a few very small pieces a year or so ago. We went in and I had a ring repaired and I got $400 for 2 or 3 pretty small pieces. Gold is really, really expensive right now. So donate. I thought this was really sweet. One of the board members of Thrift Shop came up to me yesterday and said, I know you're speaking tomorrow. And I mean, I don't want this to seem inappropriate, but you are going to talk about the thrift shop, aren't you? And I said, oh, I've already got your back. We're handing out flyers for the thrift shop. And I told Karen, I put it in a little bigger font. So it's, you know, subliminally, Westminster Thrift Shop. If you've never been there, you should go. Men, you should go. Once in a while, we get things you might be interested in. We do have clothing. I was there Saturday and 2 men came in and they both found shoes in their size, which was kind of ironic because we probably only had 10 pair. But it is a great shop. All the proceeds go to various charities through the church. And Dave, as like Vanna White, is over there pointing out where you can drop things off anytime. There are 2 big bins in there. And we do accept smaller furniture. If it's something a little bigger that you think we might take, you probably would need to call the shop and ask for permission before you drop it off. But the thrift shop it's a great place. I volunteer there on Mondays and I try to always take something to drop off. And I will tell one story about the thrift shop. Last week, Karen got there on Monday and a woman we know it was a woman because she left a message. She had dropped off 2 large pieces of felting art. And one of them literally is this long and this big. And she had left them at the front door. And Karen has been seeking opinions about what the value is. And she talked to Milena at the shop in the borough. And she told her to put at least $400 on them. Wow. The framing of the one would have been at least that much money. So if you like interesting art, they are quite beautiful. We have a waiting list right now. People are waiting. We have 2 people interested. They're waiting for us to tell them what we want for them. But we don't get things like that too often, but it's a nice bonus. What? I actually thought about that. That's what I said. I think she should take bids, say, well, how much would you pay for it? And then call the next person. Other options are Habitat for Humanity Restore. And it's over Downingtown, Thornton. Thorndale. See, I kind of halfway had it. I've only lived here less than 2 years. They do take furniture. So if you've got bigger furniture, because they are just, you know, they will take almost anything. Books, the thrift shop, we take books, and our books sell really well because we only charge $1 or $2. But there's a second reading bookstore, and they have 2 locations within the borough. Animal shelters are a great place for rugs, blankets, towels. Any animal shelter will always welcome things like that. Furs, I did look this up, and I had a conversation with someone the other day. We all 3 said, we have furs, we don't wear them anymore. We don't feel like it's not politically correct. I don't want to get into it with somebody about wearing a fur. So PETA, and there are other fur rehabbers. If you have a fur and you really want to do something, they give them to homeless people, and sometimes they use them for bedding for animals, for like abandoned animals. Goodwill, someone told me the other day they accept stuffed animals, and a lot of places won't accept stuffed animals, so that's an option. And the Vietnam Veterans of America, they pick up, which I text almost, I go online about once a month and have them picked up at our house. They'll leave you a bag for your next pickup. And I looked to see, because I thought when we lived in Pittsburgh, they had a store. Maybe they did, but they no longer have stores. They resell what you donate. And there are other places. Green Drop does that also. Green Drop resells your items.
Sure. I added the community warehouse project.
Oh, yeah, yes. And I looked them up, and They don't even publish their address on their website. You have to call them. Do you have information?
We do. So some of us come round every 6 months. We'll pick up furniture from you. So if you just watch the church bulletin, because they don't let you just deliver. You have to arrange it and at certain dates because they only have a certain number of people working there. So
Great.
people come and pick up. Church will come and pick up.
Did everyone hear that? It's in the bulletin.
So Tim, just to add, it's small furniture. So
Okay.
they're trying to help people who are homeless get off the streets.
It's beds and lazy boys
Oh, yeah.
and settees,
Yeah.
even mattresses they take as well.
We had a huge table and they wouldn't take it, but
Oh, okay,
a
yes.
small kitchen table, if you go into small apartments, that's what they're trying to furbish.
Yeah.
So it's a small table, side table for a bed, small bed, things like that. I've been over there. It's Cindy Poole asked me to drive over carpeting and a chair. It's huge. It's 3 or 4 times the size of this room. So it's a major place over by. Yeah.
I donated a lounge chair, and I learned that they use the lounge chairs for beds in my community in Southern Chester County. So it's worthwhile. So do I.
And they will take small electrical items and kitchen items and things like that. as well.
Yeah. So you go onto the website.
There's two places. One where Brain Place.
I think it's on Arizona Street. I thought we had an Arizona Street in Westchester.
It's at Shram's and there's another one in
Isn't it near Henderson?
town as well.
Henderson, what did I say?
Mostly it's been nice.
Henderson High School, you said Arizona. I don't know.
I think it's on Arizona Street, but you're right. It's very close to
It's
Henderson
Shram.
High School.
It's in Shram.
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 Ram's old building, yeah.
Yes, and then they've also got another one in Downingtown as well.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Good timing that you're here, because I've not been there, but I want to look into it also. Then my next page says giveaway. I mean, if you're donating, you are giving away. If you're donating, you might be getting a tax receipt. But these are places where you can just give things away, and you can kind of pick and choose. Somebody can tell you a story that, oh, you know, I really need this because I had a fire, or my daughter just turned 2 and I need that playpen, or so there's Free Cycle, which is a local group. You have to sign up, but it's by area, because if somebody is dropping by to pick it up, or you're going there to pick something up from them, you don't want to be driving clear to, I don't know, to the city. Buy Nothing Project, again, is a local group. And I believe both those you can just Google them. The Buy Nothing Project may come up as a Facebook group. And then Facebook Marketplace, in addition to selling through there, you can also offer things for free. I've noticed sometimes people offer things for like just a very small price. I think they'll filter out people who are just looking to get it and resell it. Recycling, the bane of our existence. My husband's laughing. I'm sure we live in Westchester, so we get a magazine from Westchester once a month, maybe it's every 3 months, but at least a couple times a year, there's a list in there about the recycling schedule and what they'll take and what you can do. And they give suggestions for where you can take things that you can't, just put out in your recycling. And every week I try to get over it, but we have neighbors who put their recycling in plastic bags, which it clearly says, don't put it in plastic bags. And supposedly if it's in a plastic bag, they just throw it away. They don't sort it. And there's something called wish cycling, which is when you put it in there hoping it's going to get recycled, but maybe it was a dirty, very stained pizza box with sauce on it, or something that doesn't have one of those little codes on the bottom that says it's recyclable. So just to know your own borough community. And ours, they usually have other suggestions in the magazine for what you can do with things. Helpsy is, I looked this up, I think this is still active. It is an organization that recycles clothing, and they do want clothing that's in pretty good usable condition. And Westtown School, if that's convenient for anyone, they have a drop-off box. That's the only place locally, but that's a charity that their students work with. And the boxes that you see like at gas stations or in parking lots where you can drop things off, I didn't research those. I don't know anything about what actually happens to those things, but I've always, what I have heard is that it usually goes to foreign countries. So I'm worried that sometimes when it goes to those foreign countries, it ends up in a landfill there, and as opposed to being here. And some of these are just places that came up. Some you've heard of, some I've never heard of. Beartown Recycling, which is over just past Honeybrook, but they have a long list of things they recycle, and a lot of construction kind of equipment, things that you might have in your garage, like leftover boards or flooring. College Hunks Moving Junk, they will take your things and donate what they can and recycle. The website says they recycle, but they're going to charge you. Two Men in a Truck would be the same way. And Chris Eldridge Containers, if you need like a container, if you have so much to get rid of, they rent containers, and again, they say they recycle. If you have the specific things, again, I didn't get too deep in the woods about it, like computer equipment. We all know computer equipment should not go in a landfill, but it's got your personal information on it too. So there are websites you can look at about safely recycling computer equipment. Bicycles, there's, I actually ran out of time looking all these things up, but there's, in every community has an organization that rehabs bicycles and gives them to kids whose families can't afford a bike. So don't ever throw a bicycle away. This, Dave had inserted, Dave was so kind, I have to thank Dave. He did the slides for me because I'm still not that great with my laptop. And he had a cartoon slide with a sold sign. So I decided to replace it with our picture with our sold sign and our dog and our lovely arts and crafts home that we had for 32, 33 years. And we moved into a very modern, almost a Frank Lloyd Wright kind of a feel house with lots of wood and lots of glass and not nearly the wall space to hang things that we had in the previous house. But I miss that house. And I will always miss that house, but I love where we live now, and I love the community. Just a couple other stories about things that happened to us when we had an estate sale at my father-in-law's home. We had an auction. He had an Amish-made cabinet. They lived in Amish country, and he had an Amish-made table, but it was cherry, and we could use a dining room table, but it wasn't going to go with our chairs, and we decided to sell it. And it sold for $50, which killed me because it was like new. They didn't live there. They didn't use it very much. You couldn't go down the road to the Amish people and buy one for anywhere near that. So it was just such a good deal. Another one of the experiences was, and this is just like if you have doubts about something being valuable, I should have said this, look it up, go on eBay. If you don't use eBay. We've used it for years. We've never had a problem. People are always afraid about their identity getting stolen or something. eBay is a great resource. And if you can see what people are selling things for, but if you can get to the link that click what it's sold for, that is a really good venue to look at. So one of our family members had a big property and had a bank barn, and I went to help my niece, I guess that gives it away, it was my sister-in-law property. I went to help my niece clean the house out, and the house was quite large, and my niece had the largest size roll-off that you can get and had already filled one, which I shudder to think what was in there. But I went to the barn and I found a piece of pottery from, it was made in New Orleans in the 20s, the 1920s, and it was in beautiful shape. but it was just laying in the gravel next to the driveway in the bank barn. And so I retrieved it and looked it up, and at the time, it was valued at around, it was 5 figures. So we have it for safekeeping. Eventually, our intention is to sell it and give the proceeds to the grandchildren in that family for their college. But no one else in the family would appreciate it, and it probably would have ended up in a dumpster. So try to kind of, inventory what you have, and hopefully I've not talked too fast. If people have questions, I'm happy to answer them. I told Dave he can put my email in the my email address in the email he sends out. Anyway, questions?
Sherry, thank you. I have a comment relative to eBay, because on our downsizing adventure that we've started with eBay. We've still got way too much stuff to try to do the big stuff. But we started with kids' old toys. And I'll give a couple examples of how, and eBay's route, as you said, is easy. You know that the Pez containers that you probably all had as kids, and your kids maybe had, you may have a box of them. Some of them are worthless. Some of them are valuable. We're very fortunate we had 4 or 5 of this one Pez container that had a soft head on it, not the plastic head, but a soft head. I said, how much is that going to go for? So we looked it up, like you said, on what have they sold for? Because we were about to put it on for about $10 or $15, like everything else. They were selling for around $200 to $300. Wow, that's a lot. So we put it out there at 200. It ended up auctioning all 4 of them. We put up one at a time. All 4 of them went between $500 and $600 a piece. A piece. Now, most of them, I'd say 80% of the Pez containers we have are $1 or trash. You won't get anything for them. You could sell them as a lot for someone who just wants a collection, but they'll range in price. Usually for the antique type ones in the $50 to $100 range, but that's the Pez stuff. We were ready to throw it out, and we said, well, let's just look and see what they go for. Our youngest child had some BMX biking gloves when he was maybe 8 years old, the leather gloves that you wear when you're biking, and so they're now 30 years old. People buy strange things on eBay. I'm going to, as a lark, I'm going to put these used, grimy looking gloves. They were stained. They weren't new. They had been well used. I'm going to put them on, see what they go. They went for $28. Somebody wanted them in probably a BMX bike collection shop. They went out to California someplace. You never know. And then we've put some crystal on, some things. Couldn't get hardly anything for it. There's things that you may think are valuable, nobody wants. Even if it's sold for good money before, there just has to be the buyer now, because people aren't looking all the time. So, it takes some time. Take good photographs and put them out there. Capturing a good photo is important for getting the interest, the eye for the true collector is going to be looking for good photography. You can do it. Yes, Ann.
Also donating cars, cars that would be in the driveway, because we did that, and it was the easiest thing to do. It was veteran and Vietnam veterans. They came and picked up. You gave them that, handed over the title, and they just took it all.
Bridge of Hope will take a car too.
Was that I had to go with it, and they said, no way.
Bridge of Hope periodically will have a need for a car. We donated it.
Yeah, it was easy, very easy to do. We sold cars.
So I donated one, he just needed an engine.
Speaking about eBay, if anyone's interested, I have done a program. That was my start in doing a little bit of public speaking. When we lived in Pittsburgh, I spoke at 2 different libraries 3 or 4 times and gave a program about how to get started on eBay, because I think people are intimidated, and it's much easier than you might think it is. So if there's interest in that, it doesn't have to be a Tuesday morning, but we could probably put something together I still have my notes, and I was just scrolling through our recent eBay sales, and you can leave things on there for an undetermined amount of time. So this weekend, I got a bid on a little Looney Tunes picture frame that was Wile E. Coyote. And somebody offered me more than I had it listed for, which meant it was, I didn't have to wait for the auction to close, and I put it in the mail. It was like $15, but it was this little tiny thing. It was very easy to ship. I don't mind $10 or $15 items that go in a small bag and drop it off at the post office, and it's gone. But yeah, I had one of those blue eye wash cups that everybody probably had at least one at some point. And again, it was listed for a long time, but it sold for $16. So I could have given it away and it would have gotten lost at the shop. Yes.
How do you receive your payment on eBay?
You do have to give them banking information. But I've never had any problem. I'm glad to hear Ted has done it also. Like anybody, I guess they could get hacked, but I think that eBay's pretty safe. They've been around for more than 20 years. I know we've been members for a very long time, and the first thing we sold was for my dad. And it was a piece of, I think, Roseville pottery, and it sold for $1,200. So that spoiled me because I was like, wow. And it wasn't my money, it was my dad's money, and he lived in Kansas, but I just called him and said, okay, this is who you need to ship it to and take it to the post office. It was a little different then. Now it's so easy because everything is online and the shipping is easy. So yeah, we do a lot of small stuff just because it's so easy. Any other questions? Yes.
We used to take our clothing, outdated clothing, to Riddle Thrift, which is a part of Riddle Hospital, and they kept 2/3 and gave us 1/3. That way, we're not throwing the stuff away, and we're getting a couple $100 a year for it.
Still do that?
No, the shop closed.
I was gonna say, there's a thrift shop I've missed.
Yeah, no, they closed because they're building a parking garage on that site.
Yeah.
But for men's clothing, Williamson Trade School was a good resource. The boys there are from disadvantaged families, and oftentimes they have to go out, for instance, to the flower show, and they have to wear a suit or a sport coat, and they just can't afford it. So the donations for men's clothing is good for Williamson Trade.
Sports coats, trousers.
Yeah, the boys need that kind of clothing and they can't always afford it.
I appreciate that suggestion. We had a call a month or two ago at the thrift shop, and a gentleman had what he described as very high-end suits, and he had retired and he had maybe 20 of them, and we couldn't take them. We don't have the room, and suits are so specific. Had I known that, so I will make a note of that for sure.
Where are they located?
On 352 in Media.
Right across the Melrose.
Yeah, near
352.
352 on the way to Brookhaven.
What's the name?
On the right,
Williamson Trade.
Williamson Trade School. Yeah.
I wonder if that might be something that we could see about putting in the bulletin once or twice. I'll look that up and contact them and get their information, see, because that is a problem, getting rid of men's suits, because not only like retired men don't need 20 suits or 10 suits, but people don't wear suits that often either. So my husband has his hand up again.
So I have one thing we practice, which has been good, is kind of in keeping with do something for half an hour every day just to get started. Because it is, you find yourself getting in a pattern, oh, I'm gonna go do this for half an hour. So maybe you work for an hour sometimes, maybe you do 20 minutes, doesn't matter. You've done a little bit. But we have a kind of an unwritten rule in the house. When Sherry goes to the thrift shop, she takes one thing, she can only bring one thing back.
These are small things. So you had a question.
I would say Westchester University also has a clothing warehouse. It's not very big, but that's another place that men's clothing. It's trying to think what road you go down New. It's, as you're going down along the side of the campus, it's in the building to the left, cause it's where they have the food pantry and everything too. I mean, you would call them first if you're gonna come and drop something off.
That's funny.
Because they have very limited space, but there are times when they are looking, because the kids have to go out for job interviews or intern interviews and dress up.
Yeah, Dave.
I think some of the toughest things to get rid of are things where you have an emotional attachment.
Absolutely.
It may be trophies or awards from work. In our case, I have a big shelf of photo scrapbooks from trips overseas, and I'm always visualizing, well, when I'm 90, I'll be sitting there and will remember being in Tuscany or something. How do you overcome the emotional attachment to things?
I knew I missed some things and I was scribbling notes last night, and photos and yearbooks were on my list, and also books. I mean, I'm sure, we have books that are sentimental. We have a yearbook from Ray's dad when he was in high school, because William Holden's picture is in the yearbook, although his name was Bill Beadle.
Bill Beal, they were good friends.
So we have kept that yearbook, and there's a note in it that says William Holden. Of course, we're gone, our kids look at that and go, who?
Yeah, exactly.
Was this a long lost uncle? I know, and I probably like totally just skipped over it because it's such a thorn in my side, but we have boxes and boxes of photographs. I'm sure everyone else does. If you have important photographs, do yourself a favor and go on Amazon or go to the office supply store and buy a blue wax, that's not what it's called, but a marking pencil that you can write on your photos with. Do not use ink. Even if you think it's ink that won't bleed through, who knows, 20 years from now, it might have bled through. And at least mark your photos. I'm sure we all have tins and tubs of old family photos that we have no idea who the people are.
Yeah.
I have a couple of lovely photos that I like to convince myself they were my grandmother because the woman looks so lovely, but I don't think it is my grandmother. Yes.
To follow up on what you're saying, I found cousins very helpful because my mother was good at starting an album, but she never finished writing the names of people. And there were several people in there. I don't know who that is, but I went to my cousins who were a little older and they said, oh, that's Priscilla. She was your mom's best friend. And then there was another Priscilla who turned out to be my mother's brother's first wife, who he never told his second wife about.
Oh, gosh.
But the kids found out eventually. But my father-in-law was really good using his camera, and he liked to record all their trips and things on slides. And when the house was being cleared out in Connecticut, guess who got dumped with these boxes of slides? And I mean, the projector and everything that goes through it. Years ago, my husband weeded out several of them, but I don't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
And old movies on the,
Oh, yeah. Now you can have, I think you can have all of those things digitized but it's not cheap.
and that's a big project.
And I've looked into like buying the equipment and doing it myself. And you actually if you have an iPhone, it has a built-in scanner and it works pretty well. I've scanned photos that way. But you were adding something else.
Yeah, I was just gonna say one more thing. You talked a little about places that buy silver and things. This is where I get stuck. I can downsize a lot, but I got stuck with the silver things because, again, when my father-in-law's house was being cleaned out, we were given all these pieces of silver and of serving pieces and dishes and things that had monograms on them. I've been working on genealogy. I did a lot on mine. I was working on my husband's, and I finally figured out who these people were that had been passed down through the generations. But I didn't know if they were valuable or not, just wanted an idea. And playing around with my phone, and I just have a little Samsung phone, it's not an iPhone. There's this little thing on, when you do the Google search, there's a microphone next to it, and next to that is Google Lens. And if you click on that while you have the piece in front of you, immediately down below, you'll see that piece as it would be on the internet, on eBay or Etsy or any of these other places, and a rough idea of what the value is. Wow. And I was going to town after that. I went through every piece. And then I asked my kids,
when we're gone, what do you want of these? And they both said, nothing.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, I've been holding on to these pieces and I stopped polishing silver a long time ago. I said, why am I holding on to these?
Yeah. The Google search is a great thing to use. And I didn't know about it until I started working at the thrift shop and Karen showed it to me. And you can do almost anything with that.
Yes.
I have been watching a TV show, usually it's Blue Bloods, and I like what the sister wears, her clothing, and I take a picture of it and do a Google search, and then it pops up and tells me, yeah, that blouse is $1,200. I won't be ordering that. But you can use it in a lot of different ways, and we do that at the shop all the time.
I took a picture of my neighbor's plant. She didn't know what it
Oh, yeah,
was.
yeah.
And the plant came right up and said it was poisonous, don't touch it. She said, oh, that's why I got the rash on my face after I was pruning it back. Yeah, it works on everything.
The family photographs, you can put them onto Ancestry.com,
Yes.
which then means greater parts of your family across the world can then see pictures of cousins. And
That is a great idea, too.
Hey, Dave, one thing I would comment is we all suffer from this an important family thing, and I think it's easier for the spouse to have some sense about it. And so you can collectively say, you know, when my mother's grade report cards from first grade through 12th grade available. Sherry said, we really want these. I said, probably. So we throw them away. So I think that you can get a little perspective from your spouse and your kids as well. I think it helps, but it's very difficult. I don't be the first to comment.
When you get into genealogy, you wish, I wish I had my great grandmother's tortoise shell comb and.
No, my kids don't want anything.
So maybe today the kids say, I don't want that.
Yeah.
But when they're 70, they might say, gee, I wish I still had dad's old ring," whatever.
Well, you can always do it like that.
Side out of mine.
Make them worry about it later.
Yeah.
We've been talking about the physical stuff to get rid of. I'm in the process, 2 years now, of closing out my parents' estate. Please, if you have any piddly stocks here and there and whatnot, sell them. Because it gets, or combine them, because I have been dealing with various companies. I finally got it done. But anybody want a couple shares of Warner Brothers stock, because it costs you $50 to trade it in, but it's only worth $30. So, you know, it's, if you have that kind of stuff, consolidate it into one account.
Yeah. We might be interested. WB are the family initials. So.
Oh, okay. I think I finally told them you can keep it, don't, because they have some kind of charity they can donate. I'm like, yep.
My husband is feeling your pain. I believe his dad had stocks in 80 different companies.
Oh,
it took him a year.
Oh, I'm almost to 2 years, but I think I have finally gotten it done. And now I'm just waiting for the lawyers to deal with it.
One last thing, and I apologize to Betsy because she was very kind to lend me a book that she had gone to see a speaker. And the name of the book is Squint, Squint. And the reason that it's titled that is the woman said, like, an artist will squint when they want to look at something very closely, and we all do that. And it is about downsizing. The woman used to be a professional downsizer and sold her company. But if anybody's interested in that book, you can probably find it on Amazon or on your library app. Dave.
Let me say one
thing
about the book. What her lecture was really about was about memories. You don't need the stuff. You need the memories.
Yeah.
And she talked about a lot of different places, but mostly the book is about the emotional part of my kids getting older and going from one place in our life to another place in our life. As I said, it's mostly about the memories. Tell your children about the memories. They don't want the stuff, but you can tell them about it and then do something to get rid of it. And that's basically what it's about. She had a lot of examples of her own family too.
You never can tell if you're going to cross paths with somebody that has something of interest to you. As an example, some years ago, I played at an assisted living facility out near Honeybrook. And there were two sisters, not married, no children, no relatives. There were residents in the assisted living. And this particular month I was playing music for them was the birthday month. It was December of a fellow named Salvatore Guaragna. Now that name may not mean anything to anybody, but as an American composer, his name became Harry Warren. So this was in the month of December, and I announced to the people, I'm going to play some songs by Harry Warren. And after the program was over, the two sisters came up to me and they said, we know Harry Warren. And I said, I'm going to amaze these sisters. I'm going to tell them their real name. And I said, did you know his real name was Salvatore Guaragna? And they said, yes. And I was astounded. How did you know his real name? And they said, when we were kids, he would come and play poker with our brother. Harry Warren was a great composer, 42nd Street Shuffle Off the Buffalo and so forth. At a subsequent month I was there, they actually brought in a letter to their brother that was signed by Harry Warren. Now, to me, that would have been priceless. I'm sure both sisters passed away, and whoever at the facility was in charge of getting rid of their stuff saw this letter. Harry Warren meant absolutely nothing to them, and it got tossed. As a piece of memorabilia that to a musician would have been very, very important.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not something you can go into without doing a lot of thought and a lot of work. And I feel like we should probably end it here. It's just after 11. Did you have one last question? Did you for a comment?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. This is a little off, but it's the kind of the opposite. We have too many photographs. As I was going through my parents' things, there were two photographs that were very small. Sometimes they had very small photographs in those days.
Yeah.
And I knew they had to be preserved, but they had problems. They were in bad condition. And I went to, this is a long time ago, CBS had a photo restoration program. And every once in a while they'd have half price. It was like 42 something, but they'd have half price. I took these two photographs and I said, okay, this one is precious. It's my father, probably at the time of his baptism, and that someone had written in ink on the front 1914. So I knew I know everybody there. They lived two doors down, my grandparents. There's my father and his family in this formal portrait, but it had 1914 on it. And they said, we can take that off. And they fixed the lighting and everything. And they said, what size do you want it? They said, we're giving you a CD and you can copy it as many times as you want.
Wow. Yeah.
So that was precious. And I now have it framed, but I also put that on Ancestry so all the relatives can see it. Now everyone is borrowing it, and that's fine. They can take it. And there was one of my mother and her sisters and her brother with my great-grandmother, and they all lived together because my grandmother died when she was young. So to have these people right at the end of the war, it was such a happy day standing outside their house. So I copied this picture and gave it to all my cousins. So we were at a funeral and I was passing that out, and they're just precious. So I didn't want to keep a lot of pictures, but those two were so important to our family to preserve. I don't know if they still do that. I mean, I'm sure
there's definitely resources where you can do it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for coming. It was a nice big group. And again, if you've not been here, come back.